The Crusader Kings 3 Royal Court DLC introduces a whole load of new game mechanics into Crusader Kings, from a real-life throne room that you can see here where you can sit and rule over your subjects and courtiers. Speaking of which, you can appoint new civilian or royal positions. You can hire yourself a jester if you want to. Artifacts can be displayed as well, or wielded in battle if you're so lucky, and new mechanics like grandeur, the sort of famousness, the reputation of your court, add more dynamic elements to the game as it releases on console as well. Here's a sneak peek at what that user interface will look like. My name is Jumbo Pixel, and in this video I'm going to take you through the highlights of Crusader Kings 3 Royal Court DLC. If you enjoy this kind of coverage, or you'd like to see more Crusader Kings from me, please do consider dropping a like rating on this video, and without any further ado, let's jump in and discuss all of the new features. First and foremost, I want to bring us into the throne room to address these big changes. I should also note there'll be some Crusader Kings 3 gameplay in the background. However, I will be showing some things on screen like this where it's important to do so. So, the DLC will bring us a throne room where we can actually sit and see our characters play out. Now, this is really important because it builds on that sort of relationship and the drama element. It's backed up by this system, the Court Grandeur system. You can think of this sort of as the fame of your court balanced against its reputation and what others sort of expect from it. For example, an illustrious court, say you're sitting at top of the Roman Empire, will have lofty expectations placed, whereas some runt in the middle of nowhere's court will have lesser expectations. The fame of your court, which can be supported by a load of other things I'm going to discuss in this video, like court artifacts, can also help to increase that court grandeur and build and level it up to try and get extra benefits along the way. The crucial thing about the throne room, though, is also how it relates with the other elements of the grandeur system. There are, I think, 4 to bear in mind: fashion, food, lodgings, and servants. There, you can see them on screen. You can build your grandeur by being more fashionable, right? The good crown, the proper gown, not the potato sack. Proper food, both serving it to your guests and your courtiers, will improve your grandeur. Likewise, these court artifacts, which we'll touch on in a little bit, can help, but also the lodgings that you spend money on in-game to provide, and the quality of service your servants deliver, and their happiness and opinion of you, can all add together into shaping the court grandeur. Positive grandeur will allow you to raise more money, but you'll have to spend money to get there. Lose it, and your vassals might get mad. The throne room itself also introduces its own unique events, leading to, if you didn't see this clip in the trailer, potentially a totally not at all Game of Thrones Red Wedding situation. The point is, the throne room itself interacts not only with the other elements in this DLC, but also plays out its own stories. You get to see your character in real life, your courtiers in real life, invite them in, make decisions, piss them off, or befriend them. It's entirely up to you. I think it's a great way to bring the very sort of strategic, sometimes very dense world that is Crusader Kings, and add a little bit more variety to it. We can also see our characters in the flesh, which is another fantastic thing. Anyway, enough dwelling on that. I want to now sort of bring you into the next phase of what this DLC adds by talking quickly about the court artifacts and a little bit more on the court positions. The court artifacts are essentially either belonging to your court, or the second variant of them that you can actually wield and hold on your inventory, because your personal sort of inventory is also returning to this grand world in Crusader Kings 3. Some artifacts will be on display. You've seen some of them already on screen. Think a crown or a grand chair or a statue or some furniture, whatever. Those things can be displayed in your throne room in your court to build on your grandeur and all sorts of other additional benefits, including interacting with piety, fame, renown, those sorts of mechanics in-game as well, if you hold some great artifacts. The ones that are personal, that are inventory items, can give you other returns. You can literally wield or wear weapons and gear in the game, and the quality of the items as well, because they too have their own tiered system, will impact the kind of benefits you can get. The other thing that's being introduced here alongside the artifacts is those court positions and how they'll interact with artifacts and also all of the other existing elements in Crusader Kings. One example may be you might hire some bodyguards, and those bodyguards probably won't have access to Excalibur, but you just might. And really, across all of these as well, they're interlacing with some really interesting game mechanics. The items themselves degrade over time. They can be destroyed. How are they passed down through families? All sorts of interesting things that will play out with these court and personal inventory artifacts. Now let's shift through into the second sort of big overarching change for the Crusader Kings Royal Court DLC. And that would be the changes that are being introduced to the game's culture system. It's becoming more dynamic, like Faith. There's a little sneak peek. There'll be a few more as we go along. Essentially, cultures will work as described by the game's developers themselves with 3 pillars. You've got ethos, pillar, and tradition. I know what you're thinking, why is one pillar called pillar? The pillar system is how I think about it, but what I should probably do is relay it to you in a way that makes sense. Essentially, culture's ethos is its mindset and beliefs. The pillars are what underpin and hold it up. Think language, heritage, architecture. And finally, your culture will also have a tradition. Your people may be fighters. They may favor agriculture, or focus on military endeavors. All of these things, of course, build into a cultural system that is underpinned by acceptance. If a ruler over a realm isn't accepted by the culture within it, that leads to frictions with county control, with claims, and all sorts of other mechanics that underpin Crusader Kings 3. What is important to know here is that cultures are essentially, and for players who are more familiar than me with Crusader Kings 3, essentially, it's becoming fluid and dynamic like Faith. And that's maybe the most sort of rudimentary and easy way to put it. It's becoming more like that, I should say. The other important thing to note here, by the way, if you're thinking, hey, I don't have the Crusader Kings 3 Royal Court paid DLC, do I get any of this for free? Yes, you do. The inventory, the tradition, and the positions that we've talked about are all being freely updated to Crusader Kings 3. Back to the point at hand, though, let's talk a little bit more about this cultural system, because it's quite interesting how it's going to play out. Naturally, over time, cultures will diverge. Hybrid cultures can be created. This naturally happens as the landscape, the geopolitical landscape, changes over time. I'm going to shut Siri up while she tries to interrupt me here, and we're going to carry on with this video, and I'm not even going to cut this bit out. Cultures can diverge over time, and you can choose to diverge and adapt new ones. Essentially, again, to reiterate, it's bringing in a lot of those comfortable Faith mechanics and overlaying them over the culture's system. But I think actually it's going to have a lot more of an impactful system on the game overall as we move through. Let's shift gears now and talk about the big changes to creating new cultures. So first up, we have the hybridization model, and we also have the divergence model. These are 2 ways that you can change your culture in Crusader Kings 3. The hybridization model does require a few things like 50 years and that new crucial acceptance underpinning to the hybridization or divergence models. Now, all the different things that will be taken into account as to whether you can hybridize, whether you can sort of merge 2 cultures into one, depends on a load of factors, right? Your heritage, your language, your faith, and your religion. You could perhaps improve the acceptance of the local people and therefore enable a hybridization of culture by giving titles to people who are of that culture, perhaps the native people of the land, right? You can't just come in and force it on them because it may not work, but if you bring them along with you, you might find more luck. There's also sort of a need here to blend the art, the ethos, the sort of technical underpinnings of the culture, if you will, the pillars and traditions that we talked about before, and picking and choosing from different ones to merge them together to find a culture that is acceptable for all people. The other model, slightly more aggressive, but not too much, is that divergence stance. In the divergence stance, it's a little easier. You're diverging away and creating something new. There are also preconditions. They're slightly different. We perhaps don't need to dwell on them too much in this video, but what you need to know is you'll have much more control over fluid cultures, and they will morph over time as your lands change, as cultures merge, as peoples fight or develop alliances and interrelate, shall we say, their royal houses. This has been my highlight video of Crusader Kings 3 and the Royal Court DLC, release date of 8th of February 2022. Thank you very much for watching. I will be covering the DLC itself and some actual new DLC gameplay when it releases on my Twitch channel and right here on YouTube. Until then, Stay frosty and classy. I'll see you next time.